Hello, welcome back to Levant TV Straightforward. This week we will be discussing the upcoming presidential elections in Lebanon. Will the country be in political vacuum like the one it witnessed before President Sleiman was elected in 2008? Lebanon is one of 5 countries expecting elections this spring, including Syria, Iraq, Egypt, Yemen and Algeria. Let me first welcome our guests here at the studio. Dr. Mohammad Haidar, UK-based political analyst, and Mr. Christian Shawoul, London representative, media representative of the Kataeb, the Lebanese Phalangist Party. Thank you very much for being on the show. Before we delve into our expectedly heated discussion today, let's have a look at this brief report on presidential elections within the current political structure.
When the mandate of President Michel Sleiman expires in May, and barring exceptional circumstances, Lebanon will have a new president. As per the unwritten National Pact of 1943, the president must be a Maronite Christian. The period to elect a new president in Lebanon began on March 25th, and so far in the running for this year's election are the leaders of the 2 largest Christian parties, the Free Patriotic Movement's Michael Aoun and the Lebanese Forces head Samir Jaja, the only candidate to have officially declared. Most political parties and foreign powers have highlighted the necessity of electing a new president on time in order to avoid a presidential vacuum such as the one between November 2007 and May 2008, when finally the current President Sleiman was selected. With Lebanon being a representative democracy, the presidential elections take place at the parliament, where only the 128 MPs decide Sleiman's successor. A candidate needs a 2/3 majority to be elected. If this wasn't successful, a president could be elected with a simple majority of 65 votes. And the Speaker, Nabi Berri, should convene the legislature for a presidential poll by May 15th. Hezbollah, who joined the parliament in 2005, is closely allied with the Free Patriotic Movement, headed by Michael Aoun, whose ambitions for Baghdad Palace are very clear. However, throughout the Cedar Revolution and for the first time in Lebanon's recent history, the Sunnis voiced a stance against Syria and allied with the Christian right, especially the Lebanese Force leader Samir Jaja. The Lebanese Patriarch has always had a say as to who the president will be, but how will that compare to foreign factors like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Syria and the West? While many have ambitions for presidency, it's not always been a very rewarding experience. Former Lebanese presidents have been assassinated and others were subject to harsh criticism from the people as well as the media.
Dr. Mohammad Haidar, the report ends by concluding that it's not all glamorous being president in the Lebanon, and criticism does get harsh, especially towards the end of a presidential term. Let's assess with you a little bit President Sleiman's term.
Well, according to the last statistics, there are people who are in favor of, for example, General Michel Aoun. At the last period of the President Sleiman wasn't really in favor of all of the Lebanese, When he was elected, there was like, he had a neutral position and from an equal distance from all political parties. But at the end of this period, there was a little turn, which was really wasn't in agreement with all the Lebanese. And this is what the Lebanese expect from the presidency. Although it is a Christian position, well, it's not constitutional, but it's like a protocol, an agreement.
Yes, a gentleman agreement.
That's right. But of course, this is something, the Lebanese agree on it. So the president should be a Maronite. And that's why, we shouldn't always consider that this position is, for example, is a political position or a confessional one, belongs to the Maronite or belongs to the Christian. This position is for the whole Lebanese. Yes. So that's why, consensus among, all the Lebanese is something really important for the next period of time. A president who should have consensus among the Lebanese in order to make or pave the roads for a better future for the Lebanese in general.
So can I reiterate, you just mentioned because all Lebanese confessions sort of gentlemen agreed that the Lebanese president will be a Maronite. You emphasize on the importance of the inclusivity in terms of public opinion when it comes to the upcoming president, and that he should be at an equal distance from all the Lebanese.
Well, at this moment, if we look back at the the primary seat for the prime minister,
Yes.
there was a long, discussion between the Lebanese, and there was the total disagreement from different political parties, and everybody was trying, to raise their ceiling, about what this has to be, or that. Well, basically, the agreements, between the Lebanese on certain issues, which really is important to each political party. But at the end of the day, it is a learned lesson, for the Lebanese. If you don't come to an agreement among each other, we will reach nothing. And at the end of the day, when at the end of this period of the prime minister, they had to elect the right person. Although this period is a short period of time, but I think we need like a stronger prime minister, and that's why we need a very strong and really good character of a president who have the consensus of the Lebanese, a president who we are proud of. Well, I'm not saying that we're not proud of Michel Suleiman, but there were certain issues which really related to the future of this country. Right. There was no agreement on it, and this is what made some of the parties criticize the president, and not the presidency position, by the way. The president himself, as a person, not the chair itself.
Yes. Christian Shawoul, what could we say about President Suleiman's legacy as a president?
In my opinion, President Suleiman's legacy was a good legacy compared to Lahoud and Hrawi's one. For me, President Suleiman was a president for all the Lebanese. When he defends the area that's getting bombed by Syria lately, which are Sunnis area and Muslim areas, he's defending his people basically, which proves that he's a president for all sectors of the Lebanese people and not only the Christians.
Yes.
President Suleiman's main aim lately was to defend the sovereignty of Lebanon from the invasion of the Syrian, if it was military or the refugees or all what's happening on our borders, which is destroying the stability of our country, the stability of our people. Therefore, I rate President Suleiman for doing this. I rate the Christian president for defending Sunnis living by the borders and Shias, which are being killed and bombarded from the Syrian borders.
So obviously that's an assessment also to Mr. Suleiman as a Maronite president.
Exactly.
Dr. Haidar, before we get into the strategic choices that President Suleiman took, let us touch a little bit on reform in Lebanon when it comes to human rights and women's rights, particularly. What has been achieved under Suleiman, and is there anything left for the next president?
I'll tell you, in Lebanon, when you talk about like a new breakthrough for a president, it's there are, you have to remember that there are some priorities for the Lebanese society. I know human rights issue or women issue or child abuse or health issue is one of the issues the Lebanese political leaders must concentrate on. But priorities for Lebanon is different now. There are quite a lot of security problem in Lebanon, which put, security is a major, priority for the Lebanese. We have security gaps in many areas. We have enemies on the borders. We have a violation of our sovereignty by the Israelis. They are flying over the Lebanese territories almost every day, which really this is a break of the international law. I mean, when you are under threat, when there is a security problem in the country, priorities I think are different. So we have to be able to put these issues in terms of priorities and then discuss it. It is very important. I said yes when we have like social problems for Lebanese women who you mentioned that like who are married to a non-Lebanese. Why the Lebanese law do not take this issue in seriously and in consideration, or at least allow the children of this Lebanese woman to be Lebanese instead, of having a different nationality. While all over the world, any person who go and live in a certain country, for a certain period of time, they have the right to have the nationality of that country where they live in for a while.
Christian, what do you have to say about that, especially when it comes to women's rights? We know well that Mr. Slimane sort of supported initial legislation when it comes to that, or at least activism.
As you said, President Sulaiman tried to start something, and I think he succeeded to a certain extent in putting the titles of, for example, giving the rights for the Lebanese women abroad to give the Lebanese identity for their kids, and so he tried to do something in this domain. How successful it was, I think I'll leave it on title, successful.
Now let's have a look at the tenure of President Michel Slimane in a graph based on a poll featured in a Safir newspaper in Beirut, based on the reports, 16% of the Lebanese say that President Michel Slimane's performance was excellent, and 47% say that it was good. 20% say that it was bad, and 9% said that it was very bad. And 4% said, I don't know, and 4% refused to answer. Now let me get back to you, Christian Shawoul. Previous presidents, especially President Lahoud and President Rawi, emphasized boldly on the alliance with Syria, and of course great support to the anti-Israeli resistance of Hezbollah. What do you have to say about that? How would you compare President Slimane with President Lahoud and President Rawi, especially when it comes to Hezbollah and the relationship with Syria?
President Rawi and President Lahoud, in my opinion, they're two presidents that they have been made in Syria. They're fully serious, fully supported them. They were elected president when the country was under the Syrian occupation. They had no popularity within the Christian street, especially the Maronite street as well. They didn't represent no one. They didn't even represent 5% of the Lebanese Christians when they were elected presidents. Now, if you want to compare them to President Sulaiman, I think, in my opinion, President Sulaiman done a much better job.
By staying a little bit detached from Hezbollah, you mean?
By staying a little bit detached from Hezbollah. He had many opportunities to attack Hezbollah when he was in the States, when he was in Europe visiting countries, this and that. As a matter of fact, he didn't attack Hezbollah, but he defended Lebanon and not Hezbollah against the Israelis, when they were entering Lebanon, when their airplane flying over Lebanon, this and that. But he wasn't so much involved in defending Hezbollah as much as President Lahoud was, or ex-President Tahrawi was. So therefore, President Sulaiman was better in this sense.
Dr. Haidar, how would you compare President Slimane's stance on Syria and Hezbollah?
There are three different characters, in terms of presidency, and each president has his own personality, and he is entitled for his opinion and his, the team he worked with and the performance. At the end of the day, history will tell who was really better serving the Lebanese. Yes, it's true there was, Syrian influence at that period of time when Harawi was the president and Lahoud, but none of the Lebanese political leaders were not away from the same scenario.
That's not a secret.
Most of the Lebanese leaders were in the arm of the Syrians. Even the people who oppose the Syrians at the moment now, they were appointed by the Syrian. So it's cynical, this way. But we shouldn't forget that Lahoud was the chief of the army.
And so was Michel Slimane.
That's right. So he wasn't made by Syria. So he was the chief of the army. When you have the chief of the army, you know that this person have the loyalty, his 100% loyalty to Lebanon. And if he defended, the position of Hezbollah, he was defending the Lebanese against our historical enemy who was invading and killing the Lebanese for many years, for tens of years, for over 50, 60 years. So we cannot blame President Lahoud for his position. As an army or as a soldier, he is proud to defend the Lebanese territory. So this is the base. It doesn't matter when he moved to the presidency, so he became a political leader. He is not the chief of the army, but we cannot, doubt his loyalty to Lebanon. If we're talking about President Suleiman, he didn't defend the Hezbollah position. It's his opinion. He's entitled. It means he's not with all the Lebanese. A president, to be for all the Lebanese, he should have the ability to find the common factors among all the Lebanese and bring them all together. That's why he is not succeeding at the moment to convince all the Lebanese party to come to the table to discuss their problems because of his attitude. If he is a political leader, I would say he should have been more flexible and use the right language when he described like the most important parties by like a wooden formula or something, worth nothing. At the end of the day, his opinion was worth nothing, and he lost this battle at the end of his period. Although I would have preferred if he took a neutral position, he would be in a better position at the moment.
I'm sorry, just I want to comment on something that your guests have mentioned. You mentioned that President Lahoud was the head of the army, therefore his loyalty was for Lebanon and the Lebanese people, this and that. Michel Aoun was the head of the army in 1998. 1980, this and that. He was fighting the Syrians because they were invading Lebanon. Does this mean that he was a traitor back then? Does this mean that his loyalty was not for Lebanon or the Lebanese people?
His loyalty was for the Lebanese, and he was fighting for his opinion. And the political situation has changed from that period of time to this period of time.
Exactly. Therefore, a title don't make a person. So if someone was the head of the army, it doesn't mean that he's patriotic or he's not patriotic.
He wouldn't be in this position if there is no political consensus among political leaders. It's not all the politicians at the period of time were appointed by the Syrians.
I disagree.
All
not
of
all
them.
the politicians.
Why do you disagree? Elaborate more.
All of them.
Because he's saying all the politicians were adopted by the Syrians. I totally disagree.
Who's the exception?
Amin Jmail wasn't adopted by the
Syrians.
Syrians.
He was in
He
France.
was exactly, but he was still a leader.
Sure.
Michel Aoun wasn't adopted by the Syrians.
He was in France as well.
Exactly, but he was still a leader. So many people, Etienne Saar, head of the Guardian of the Cedars as well.
Not famous leaders anymore.
What,
they
Michel,
are not political leaders anymore.
Ex-President Amin Jmail
what is his contribution to the Lebanese? Look, compare his position to his father's position.
You cannot
to Pierre Jmail.
Compare any party position who is 77 years old and who's still as big as the Kataeb party.
He represents only a little spot in Lebanon, while the Michel Aoun now, he represents the majority of the Christian.
With his alliance, of course, with his Hezbollah alliance.
No.
Are you saying nothing to do Michel Aoun per se?
This has nothing to do with just clarifying. With his alliance with Hezbollah. His alliance with Hezbollah wouldn't give him popularity among the Christians.
Sorry, you've mentioned that.
We will get to this section. We will definitely get to this section. Can we save a little bit for the next section? Let's have a short break and go to the next section on who will be the next president in Lebanon. And now let's move on to discuss what it takes to be Lebanon's new president within the current geopolitical context in the Middle East. But before that, let's have a look at a small graph showing some figures of a poll also in Al-Safi newspaper, which looks at the possible scenarios relating to the upcoming presidential dilemma in Lebanon. As per the poll, 40% of the people say that the president will be elected during the constitutional time limit. 29% of the Lebanese think the country will enter in a political vacuum, and 15% say that the current presidency will be extended, and 14% don't know, and 2% refuse to answer. Now, let me ask Christian Shawoul. 40% is rather a huge proportion, thinking of that the country will have a new president within the constitutional limit. Why this optimism amongst the Lebanese?
This shows you that the Lebanese people are desperate not to have an empty Christian seat, because this is, apart from the head of the army, this is the most popular Christian.
Christians also didn't want an empty prime minister's seat before Tamam Salam became prime minister.
Exactly, because An empty seat harms the country a lot, harms the reputation of the country, harms the country economically, harms the country politically, harms, you know, if you don't have a president or a prime minister or a head of parliament, for the international world, you know, you're not fully there, you don't fully exist. So as a country like Lebanon must, especially with all the surroundings now, what's happening in Syria, what's happening in the whole region, Egypt, Libya, Afghanistan even, this and that, it is really important to have a president on time within the limit. And we as a Kataeb party, we believe that the presidential election should be held on time. And we hope that it will happen.
Dr. Haidar, what is your view on this?
The trouble, you know, with when you talk about like a period of a vacuum, you know, doesn't matter whether in the prime minister position or the presidency. The main reason for that is that there is a great portion of the political leaders are not really experts in politics. They're still amateur. And,
you're talking experts from an academic level?
No,
or
it's not to do with the academic level. It's the political flexibility.
Yes.
There are, I mean, quite a lot of those leaders are like new.
Can you name some of the new ones?
Well,
are you talking about the young ones?
Majority of March 14th, you know, most of those, you know, they're still in the political ladder of learning what is politics.
Christian,
you see,
I totally disagree.
That's fine. You know, I mean, we have a lot of evidence to show that. For the prime minister, for example, the future party,
yes,
and the 14th of March, they said there is no way of electing or appointing a prime minister if Hezbollah did not pull out, you know, from Syria. And we are not going to sit down on the table with them. And they put some more conditions as well. And at the end of the day, after 3 weeks, everything is turned upside down to the 180 degree.
If anything,
they sat down on the table, they changed their words, and they agreed on everything.
If anything, this shows a vision for the 40 March coalition. This shows a vision because Lebanon as a country, as an army, as a country, as a whole, they cannot support anyone who goes and fight in any different country. It doesn't have to be Syria or not Syria. We cannot handle the consequences of Hezbollah going there. And if anyone should go and fight on behalf of Lebanon, it should be the Lebanese army and the Lebanese army only. So these amateur people that you just called amateur, but they're more mature than what you can imagine because they've got a vision for Lebanon. They care about protecting this country and its people.
Before
you talk about vision. What vision for a political leader who say, you know, I'm not going to do this. I have this. No, no, no. And after like 2 weeks, they become yes, yes, yes.
Let's engage a little bit. Just let's allow Mr. Ziad Abs, political bureau member of the Free Patriotic Movement. Thank you very much for joining Straightforward.
Yes, good evening for you and for your guests.
Thank you. Mr. Abs, Hezbollah Secretary General Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah told a Safir newspaper in Beirut that local elements will be influential in the presidential election this time, and the country has the opportunity of having a president who is, quote, made in Lebanon. Do you agree, Mr. Abs, with the above statement, and why do you think there could be any difference this time?
I think the current situation in the region and the balance of powers in Lebanon, for the first time during the last maybe at least 3 presidential elections, the local factors, the Lebanese factor, will have a big say in the election of the coming president. Of course, there will be still an influence for all the countries or all the parties that are involved directly or indirectly in the local political scene, but the Lebanese factor will be a major influence at this time for sure.
Question, Mr. Abs. From the Free Patriotic Movement, General Michel Aoun has not officially announced his candidacy yet, but it's no secret that he is very popular in the country, not only amongst the Maronites, but also in the eyes of the Shia sect. In your opinion, Mr. Abs, what could the Free Patriotic Movement bring to Lebanon if Aoun is back in Babda?
I mean, of course, General Aoun is a de facto candidate for the presidency, especially if.
Why do you say, of course, Mr. Abs?
Sorry?
Why do you assert this fact that, of course, he is a de facto president?
I mean, he has all the characteristics of a president: the popular support. He has the program. He has been before, during several other electoral rounds, been proposed as a president. I mean, of course, if there is going to be a president with a solution for the dilemma Lebanon is living in, and a president that's not only to manage the problem, but to create a solution, to find a solution for the several problems we are facing, then the chances of General Aoun are high. General Aoun has the popular support of the majority of the Christians, and not only the Shiite community. He has a program. He has his connections with all the Lebanese groups, even those that he disagrees or they disagree with the Free Patriotic Movement on certain issues. At least our political agenda is announced, is clear. All the Lebanese groups know where they agree with us and where they disagree with us. I mean, we can find General Aoun is not a consensus president, but he can be a president that can find common points between the several Lebanese groups. He could find 10 major common points with Hezbollah at the time where this was seen like impossible from the majority of the Lebanese. Those were written and were clear. The same could happen with other Lebanese groups. And of course, it all depends, as I say, whether we are looking for a president to run a country, to bring back the institution, the power to the institutions, or just a president to fill a gap of 6 years waiting for the regional problems to be solved.
Tell us more about the program of the Free Patriotic Movement, the program that they might be able to take to Babda if Aoun becomes president.
We raised a slogan since 1989, a strong Lebanon, and this will be still the title of the program of General Aoun. We believe that Lebanon's strength is from its own strength, the strength of the people, the army, and the institutions, against a common practice in Lebanon that Lebanon's strength is its weakness, and should be always the consensus, or should always do whatever the major powers want him to do, or to position himself wherever the major powers of the region wants him to be positioned. We believe that General Aoun can play a role in having Lebanon's strength back from its own being in this region.
Mr. Abs, I think Christian Shaul from the Kataeb party would like to engage with you on the program of General Aoun if he becomes president.
Mr. Abs just mentioned that Michel Aoun's program was made in 1989 and it's still valid till now. In his program that was made in 1989, Michel Aoun clearly said that he is against every single weapon apart from the Lebanese army weapon. So where does this put Michel Aoun towards Hezbollah and his coalition with Hezbollah, knowing that Hezbollah have a military wings, more than 10,000 fighters who are fighting outside Lebanon, inside Lebanon, using their weapons inside Lebanon against Lebanese and outside Lebanon against non-Lebanese. And we all know that Michel Aoun's main war against the Lebanese forces back then was because the Lebanese forces has, in his eyes, weapons which was illegal or
like a militia.
Like a militia.
Yes.
Yeah. So where does Hezbollah fit in Michel Aoun 1989 presidential program?
Right. Can I add something?
That's for sure. Yeah.
First of all, we should know there is no a qualified candidate compared to Michel Aoun. That's very obvious. Second, Michel Aoun had the majority of the Christian. He had the majority block of MPs. So the majority, first of all, This is what gives him the popularity of the Christian, first of all, and it make him qualified for a presidency from a Christian point of view. From a Lebanese point of view, all his positions were very patriotic, were really well calculated and well studied, and it wasn't really, for his interest. He has a different program from others. He showed that he is a man of a political man, a political leader, and he is a flexible person, and he has a vision for the future of the Christian in Lebanon. This is quite important. If somebody is saying that Hezbollah had weapons, first of all, Hezbollah did not use this weapon
internally,
like other Lebanese.
Of course they did, against the Sunnis
in Tripoli.
Who invaded Beirut? Who invaded Beirut?
Nobody
Who
invaded
used the
Beirut.
weapons against the Sunnis?
Don't go back to that story.
Who banned the Future Television channel? Who closed Beirut?
Yeah. This is something really, you have to realize
there is
period
dead
of
people.
that position, that period of time. If you go back, all the political parties has weapons. The Phalangists.
I'm talking a few years ago. I'm talking a few years ago, 5 years ago.
You're going back to history.
5 years ago.
5 years ago or 20 years ago doesn't make a difference.
Of course
the
does.
The Phalangists are the first people who start to have a militia in the history of Lebanon.
Of course, we were defending Lebanon against the
context was different.
We were defending the existence of the Christians and of the Lebanese.
Nobody is threatening the Christian in Lebanon.
Not at all. When Abu Ammar said the road of Palestine start from Junior. Junior is a Muslim area.
That was a long time ago, I guess.
Yeah, but he took us to that period. So
yes, if it is a historical period, we can go to history. I can go back to Ja'ja''s history, military and bloody history, who killed most of the Christian leader. Who killed most of the Christian leaders.
Probably referring to Tony Frangilia there.
Who is a candidate, but it's not Michel
It hasn't been proven that he killed
Christian leaders. Let's not go back in time. Let's not go back decades in time.
Most of the Al-Ahrar, the liberal Democrats, he butchered them. He killed the Frangiya people. He killed the Prime Minister, Rashid Karami, and that's why he was in prison.
Mr. Abbas, I think you had something to say to Christian Shawoul when he argued against your analysis.
I didn't hear all the discussions or all the questions, but I could understand what he meant by the question that he addressed to me. I believe that General Aoun's strategy did not change. I mean, in 1989, when he was fighting the Syrians, he established what was called, he opened for all the Lebanese people the possibility to fight against the Syrians beside the Lebanese army. And he knows very well what a defense strategy, a successful defense strategy should be a combination of course, the Lebanese army and the people and the resistance. I mean, irrespective of this resistance, the discussion should be what is the solution of the other parties of the arms of Hezbollah.
Yes.
General Aoun has a vision on the defense strategy. He has discussed this with Hezbollah. Part of it is reflected in the memorandum of understanding signed with this party.
Yes,
I mean,
let's speak about that, Ziad Abs.
Of a strategy.
Yes, let's speak about that, particularly the understanding, the pact of understanding of Madam Khail. You were someone who was involved in this, in the drafting of this pact between Hezbollah and the Free Patriotic Movement. To what extent this pact will yield to the advantage of General Aoun in his presidential ambitions this year?
I mean, a big advantage to General Aoun is his possibility to make understandings with the whole of the Lebanese groups. I mean, even with Hezbollah in 2006, he could reach those agreements. Of course, it will play to his advantage maybe today. I am sure it played against his advantage in 2009. This was not the purpose. It all depends on the priorities. But he still can make, and we are in the process of a big discussion with the future movement. We are ready, of course, with the other Christian parties to make this kind of understanding. With the Pharangist parties, and I believe that you have someone on the table representing
Yes, that
them.
will be Mr. Christian Shawoul, yes.
Okay, we've been in a while with a discussion with them on at least we could assign what points we agree on and what points we disagree on.
Yes.
Still, I say we have a vision for how to treat the arms of Hezbollah. I wonder what is the vision except the same talk we've been hearing since years now about from the other parties. So I believe it's time to give a chance for a man that gave a lot for his country. He has made the necessary connections with the whole Lebanese group. He has a vision on every single issue that is a concern for the Lebanese. Of course, he comes as president of the Lebanese, commander of the Lebanese army. I am sure that he will not accept but the major role of defending the country to be for the Lebanese army. I will say it in a different way because he asked me if I heard well about Hezbollah going to fight in Syria. This was part of the question, yes?
Ziad Abs at the Political Bureau of the Free Patriotic Movement of General Michel Aoun. Thank you very much indeed for joining Straightforward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also from Beirut, we are joined now by activist Carol Malouf, also expert on Middle East politics and graduate of the University of Exeter here in the UK. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Carol. And before I ask you my first question, stay with us and let's have a look at this graph based on a poll on who's the most favorite president to be amongst the Lebanese people. The poll was featured in a Safir newspaper, also in Beirut. Now, the controversial results came as such. 13% of the Lebanese favor General Michel Aoun, and 10% favor Slimane Frangieh, and 6% for Dr. Samir Geagea, 6% for former Minister of Interior Ziad Baroud, and 3% for Sheikh Boutros Harb, and so on. Now, my question to you, Carol, is what do you think is behind the difference between Dr. Geagea and General Aoun in this poll?
I think it depends whom we're asking.
It was an inclusive poll around Lebanon.
I agree. I do not believe that it was selective in terms of sampling whom you've asked or not. But what I mean is there might be a general consensus around General Aoun because, you know, the March 8 coalition comprises of Hezbollah, the Marada in the north, Amal movement, the SSNP, you know, the Socialist National Party. So it constitutes a large denomination that is spread nationally, and I believe they have clearly come out to endorse General Aoun as their presidential candidate. However, if you look at the demographic concentration of March 14, you find out that it is more urban, surrounded in areas surrounding Beirut and its surroundings. So it is not as geographically dispersed as the March 8th coalition.
Mm-hmm. Just as a reminder to maintain objectivity, the statistics and the poll was conducted by an independent company called Ara, which means opinion in English, and it was amongst 500 people, and as per the company, it was all around Lebanon. My next question, Carol, do you see, or what in your opinion could Dr. Samir Geagea achieve as president?
I strongly believe that both, before I answer your question, Carl, I do believe that both Dr. Samir Geagea and General Michel Aoun are quite controversial figures. While they might be accepted by their constituents, they are categorically rejected by the other. So they would not both be perceived as consensus candidates where, you know, the majority of the Lebanese would rally around. And
is that a bad thing, Carol?
Pardon?
Is that a bad thing that there's no consensus? I mean, Obama and McCain didn't have consensus. Their audiences are completely different.
Yes. The difference between presidential elections in Lebanon and presidential elections in the U.S. is that the U.S., in the United States, the president is directly voted by the people. However, in Lebanon, it is more the president comes through political alliances that take place within the parliamentary blocs. So, and usually in Lebanon you have a kingmaker. In this case, usually in the last 5 to 10 years, the kingmaker has been Walid Jumblat's party, the Progressive Socialist Party.
Yes.
While they don't hold a large, number of seats in parliament, but where they go, the vote leans to, to go in that direction. And I believe yesterday, both Walid Jumblat and Birri, Nabih Birri, the Speaker of the House, both came out and said that they would go for somebody like former MP Jean Abed, who is considered to be more of a neutral, if you want, non-controversial, non-partisan president at this time. If you want my opinion, to go back to your initial question of what would Samir Jaja bring to the table as president, of course, he expresses the views of March 14 in general, the more liberal democratic views of the Lebanese street, be it its Christian constituency, its Sunni constituency, and even its secular constituency.
Speaking about the Shia, Samir Jaja does not have... with the Shia support is very weak for Samir Jaja compared to that of Shia supporting Mr. General Michel Aoun. Just stay with us, Carol. Let's ask Dr. Haidar what he has to say about that.
Look, we have to remember now there is a period of consultation among all the political parties and the parliamentary groups. Mr. Birri formed a consultation committee that has finished, all the duty been asked to do. They have a discussion with all the Lebanese factors and political groups.
Within the time frame.
Yes, within the time frame. And they finished last week. It was headed by Mr. Jaber. And they gave all the different opinions to Mr. Birri, because they have to call for a general meeting of the parliament, and they are studying that. Some of the political groups, they gave their decision. Some others, like 14th of March, have said nothing about it, and they are waiting for the magic word to come from Al-Hariri.
Do you agree
regarding Jaja? I think it will be a provocative move from the March 14, and there will be a shortage of vision if they can consider that Lebanon should be led by this person.
Why so?
First of all, he has a criminal record.
Carol, you're welcome to engage with Dr. Haidar as well.
He doesn't have a consensus among the Christians.
I do not
he doesn't have a consensus among
why we
among
perceive
all
Dr. Jaja.
Carol, if you let me finish my point. First of all, he doesn't have any support, a rare support from the Christian. The majority of the Christians,
just for a fact, he had the same support almost as General Aoun. Speaking about the Christians, as per the poll,
majority of the Christians are represented by the Aoun group. You have other groups as well, Al-Marada, who doesn't support him. This is on the Christian side. On the Muslim side, not all the Sunnis support him. And
definitely more than the Sunnis that support him.
And none of the Shia as well. So the majority is the majority.
I'm waiting for. I'm just waiting so that I can jump in the conversation.
Then it's not with Jaja.
Carol.
Okay. Yes, I'm here. I believe if we want to consider Dr. Jaja as a controversial candidate who does not enjoy the support of all Christians, I think the same applies to General Michel Aoun. He does not enjoy the support of all the Christians. I mean,
the majority in the parliament.
While they both support some of the Christians,
the majority of the Christian democratically
still equally controversial. You would be having a Lebanese president that represents half of the Christians. Either way, whether it's Samir Jaja or Michel Aoun. They both were involved in the civil war. They both fought against each other, and they both run in politics today. So if Michel Aoun has a stronger alliance with his counterpart, which is Hezbollah, it does not mean that it is accepted by all the Christian community in Lebanon. Let's be very clear about that. There is no general consensus that General Aoun represents all the Christians. So this is an assumption that falls away from the truth. And if we want to see things clearly, we have to name things clearly. This is obviously the case. So if General Aoun has better chances or not,
Yes.
again, it's because of his alliances. But it does not mean that he is the favored Christian candidate among all Christian constituents.
Yeah, but if Jaja is a candidate for the March 14, that shows, purely that they still are amateur in politics, and they are going to lead the country into another civil war, because there is no way that the Lebanese can accept Jaja as a president, taking in consideration his background, taking in consideration that his inconsistency as a person, taking in consideration his imprisonment for like 10, 15 years. And we will be the first country who bring a criminal to the presidency, while other countries, they make them differently.
Who has been enjoying lavish lifestyle in Paris, where he has also been an equal part in that civil war that you have just mentioned.
Yeah,
so
but he is the killer of the Prime Minister Rashid Karami,
For anybody looking at it from that perspective,
who is accused of killing Rashid Karami, if this man becomes a president, there will be disaster for Lebanon and the values of the Lebanese and the consensus among all the Lebanese. We have a unique country who brings all these confessional groups together.
I'm sorry,
that
sir,
will be, this is a term, in the history of Lebanon.
Carol, I think we have Mr. Christian Shawoul here from the Phalanges Kataeb party from Lebanon. Maybe he wouldn't really disagree as much, Christian?
I totally agree with what Carol said. On top of that, I'm in no position to speak on behalf of Dr. Samir Jaja. They've got enough representative, but I would like to mention a couple of points. Dr. Jaja have the right to be a candidate or to become president or not to become president.
Not legally. He should have a clear, from legal point of view, he should have a clear record for 10 years of a non-criminal act. The way that Jaja, so he has the right for that.
The way that Jaja was liberated from prison entitles him to be legally a candidate.
He has had a full pardon.
You have the right to nominate him.
He currently can run legally for office.
Are you talking constitutionally even, Carol?
Constitutionally, he can run because the parliament gave him the liberty and not the president. So therefore, constitutionally and legally, he can run.
But this doesn't take the truth that he killed the prime minister.
Regardless, he represents a political party.
Are you supporting a president who killed the prime minister to be the prime minister of Lebanon? I would say you bring one of the phalangists as your candidate, and you should be proud of him. Like Amin Ismail. Okay, you put in that, but you defend this one. This is ridiculous. At least you should have a candidate from the phalangists and say, look, this is our man and this is his vision, but not defend someone who killed actually most of the leaders of the Christian.
All right. Now my turn.
Go ahead.
Yes, go on.
Firstly, we don't need pity as a phalange for you to allow us to nominate someone and to support him proudly, this and that. We as a party, we are proud from our coalition. We are proud from Saad al-Hariri, Samir Jaja, Boutros Harb, from everyone. As a movement, we haven't nominated yet a candidate. Dr. Jaja, the Lebanese Forces nominated Dr. Jaja as a party, as a candidate. But as a coalition, as a movement, 40 March movement, we haven't officially nominated someone. But we will have a say. And answering your question, of course, we support President Amin Ismail as a candidate from our party to become president.
That's what I like to hear from you. Not defending.
What would be the stance?
I would say, you know, the Amin Ismail as a candidate,
yes,
he would stand a better chance.
Would General Aoun not go for it if Sheikh Amin Ismail decided to go for it? I don't understand.
If you compare,
yes,
President Ismail,
yes,
and his political history, and his political opinion, his political contribution, compared to Jaja,
yes,
I would say no. I would say Amin Ismail. That's it, definitely.
We definitely respect your opinion. Let's get back to Carol Malouf. A Druze leader, Carol, Walid Jumblat, said there will be a civil war if either Aoun or Jaja become president in the Lebanon. He went even further to say he will take part in such a war. What do you think, Carol, lies behind Jumblat's analysis?
It's just playing on the element of fear to discredit both candidates, as they are seen to be both the strongest Christian leaders in the Christian street. I mean, if I do not believe that democratically, to be candidates that would be elected by a parliament, irrespective of who that person is. Everybody has the right, Carl, to run for that position if he or she, in that regard, fulfills all the prerequisites for that. However, if we want to start, talking about civil wars and creating fear among the people, by saying that the two strongest Christian candidates today, their election would lead to civil war, is really quite demeaning to the Lebanese democratic system if we speak of such a system. However, I just would like to point out that whether it is we are mixing two things here. There is the right to run for president, and this is the right of every party, Christian be it or not, to have its presidential candidate. However, whatever coalitions or groupings are made in the parliament to elect that person or not is a different issue. Now, if the Free Patriotic Movement agree or disagree whether the Dr. Jaja should run or not, this is irrelevant at this point.
Yes.
Their opinion of him can come in the ballot box in the parliament. They have enough members of parliament to vote for whomever they want to elect. But to say that this is a disgrace to the Lebanese for him to run for elections is actually an insult to the followers of that party. You as a party nominate whomever you choose. The Phalange should not be patronized, exactly what is happening in this conversation, by telling them whom to nominate or not. Each party should have enough self-respect to appoint or to put forward its favored candidate and let the democratic game take place within the parliament, and may the best candidate win. But there is no need to use such rhetoric about other candidates if we disagree with their nomination.
Do you see, for example, Dr. Haidar's advice there as patronizing, in the sense that the Jmails or the Phalangist party is the best of two evils there? Is that how you take it?
It's not only that.
He can clearly come and say, our candidate is such and such for this position, without patronizing or without attacking the other candidate that is running.
Just before you leave us, Carol, one quick question. Do you think if Jaja became president, do you see him by any chance engaging with Hezbollah? Or should it be the other way around, as he sees it, perhaps, where Hezbollah should try to engage more?
Look, we have to be really honest about Hezbollah's role in the country. Hezbollah has the demographic constituents, they have the numbers, they have the weapons, they are a militia that operates as a state within a state, and they have their and they are in government and in parliament.
But when they're in government, how can we say they're a state within a state when they're actually in the government?
They are, but they operate militarily outside state apparatus. They were signatories to the Ba'abda Declaration, and yet they went and fought in Syria without any regard to the Lebanese state. Hence, they are a state within a state. But this is not our discussion right now. I do believe that Hezbollah are a force in Lebanon to be recognized and to be dealt with. And if, my opinion and my, I wouldn't say advice, but I think that, yes, if any of the candidates, whether it's Dr. Jaja or any other candidate, wins this election and gets to the presidency, they have to find a way to deal with Hezbollah.
Carol Malouf, political activist, advisor and commentator based in Beirut, thank you very much again for your remarkable and straightforward views.
Thank you.
As exciting as this debate is getting, I would just like to ask Mr. Haidar to reply before we close to Carol Malouf on what she just said.
It's not a reply, and I mean to her or
to argue against her, maybe.
Yeah, the point is we have to take in consideration, you know, our ethical values when it comes to choosing leaders, and honesty is one of the most important, and the character of this person and which way he has to lead all these, you know, faction, all these political parties, a person who have the ability to bring all these parties together on the table, not to divide them. And that's why, you know, someone has a good personality, has a clean history, a person who is Lebanon should be proud of, all the Lebanese. I'm not talking about a person who might be in favor of this group or that group. We would like to find a president who is the president of all, not, you know, belong to this group or that group.
Based on your knowledge, just eliminates Michel Aoun automatically.
Well, in your opinion, but democratically speaking, I would say again, he had the majority of the Christian. He was politically elected, and he had the majority in the parliament, and he has, I would say, the high majority of others as well. Like other Christians have all the Shiite, and I think half of the Sunnis. I just give him, you know, more weight compared to others.
Dr. Haidar keeps on insisting about Michel Aoun having the majority of the Christian MPs in the parliament.
Of course, this is true, fact.
The problem is we've got a broken electrical law in Lebanon.
Yes.
A law which needs to be changed, which MP Sami Jmail yesterday in his press conference said clearly that we done a big issue out of it a year ago before the parliament expired. And here we are, after a year, no one is talking about it. No, they want to take us back to the 60 law, which doesn't reflect the ground in Lebanon, which half of the Christian,
law, you mean, yes.
Half of the Christian MP are elected by Muslim votes, which is not right. Which is not right. If that's the case, we are allowed.
Now you're talking about a different story.
No. I'm not talking about a different story. I'm talking about the reflection of the parliament that we've got at the moment. The reflection of the parliament is based on. No, I'm not talking about a different issue. You keep on telling me about the parliament.
A new law, you know, you're talking about.
The MPs are being elected on a wrong. The MPs are being elected based on a wrong law. That law don't reflect.
Let's let Mr. Shawoul talk.
That law don't reflect. That law don't reflect the people who are being elected. Because, like Ijbal, for example, you've got 10,000 Shia who can vote for a Christian MP.
So what? They represent. Okay,
why don't we put in Dahi 10,000 Christian voting to elect a Shia MP?
Now you want a system who represent the Christian and only the Christian. And at the same time, the Shiite for the Shiite as well.
I want a fair system.
This is wrong, you know.
Why this is wrong? Why when it comes to the Christian part, it's always wrong?
No, we want a system who represent all the Lebanese. I will be proud, you know, of a system who let a Shia, elect a Christian.
I would be equally proud, but at the moment, this is not the case.
All different factions.
At the moment, this is not the case, because at the moment we've got about 30 to 40 MPs who are being elected purely based on the Muslim votes. Okay, while on the Muslim, I'll tell you what's wrong. the wrong
It means
part.
they represent the Lebanese.
The wrong part of it is not even one Muslim MP is being elected by the influence of the Christian votes.
This is the democracy.
Which is reflecting a wrong image based on popularity. Like now he keeps on saying Michel Aoun have the biggest parliamentary MPs.
Yeah.
This is wrong.
So it's
He
not
doesn't.
authentic.
But I tell you what,
exactly.
This does not delete the fact that there are 10,000 people, for example, of the Shiite who live in Jubail. And should be represented, and they should be represented. Their vote is there.
Okay,
and
why the Christians in the south? Why the Christians in the south are not?
No, in Sur, there
what
are
about Jazid? What about
Christians.
Ain Ibil? What about all them areas in the south? There is 100,000 votes of Christians in the south
They
that
were
they can't
elected.
elect.
They were elected by both, but Aoun got that majority.
No, they
You
not.
see?
No, they're not. The MP of the
We
south were
cannot
elected
divide Lebanon.
purely.
We cannot divide
The
Lebanon.
MP of the
This
south
district
were voted purely based on the Shia votes. This is not fair. You guys.
But the
not you
Shia
guys,
live in that
the Shia-
area, you know.
Let's
The
do
Shia are living in that area,
let's
and
do
this
a
is
new,
their right.
Let's do a new electric law that truly.
Okay, let
What's
the
point?
until this happen.
Yeah.
Until this happen, Aoun represent the majority of the Christian at the moment.
Under the
MP
current
wise,
law.
Until this
MP
finish.
wise,
Yes,
until
under
this
the
law, which
current
is the
Of
law.
wrong
course,
law.
under the current law. And you
Which is
consider
the
this
wrong
not democracy? This is the democracy agreed by the Lebanese.
This is not a democracy.
When the
How is this a
constitution,
democracy when I can't vote for my own MP?
No.
I cannot vote. I cannot elect an MP based on my vote.
You can
People of the south, they can.
until this change by the constitution, then it's a different story. But
Which
until
proves
now,
that this current law is a wrong law. It
It's
doesn't
not
represent.
representative, you mean.
It's not representative.
But
Yeah,
maybe in
but
not
it
all the
doesn't-
constituencies, because I'm
Yes.
sure the Jmails in Bikfaya or in Metin in general, they are voted by
different,
Christians
you
or
know, people.
Maronites or even
like
some
the Druze in
Orthodox.
some areas
Yes.
as well.
1,500 Sunnis votes in the metro region. That's
Yes.
it.
But that depends
That's
on
it.
the demographics, perhaps.
Exactly.
While
Why
in
do
Mount
we-
Lebanon,
Hariri moved about
What?
20,000 of the Sunni from the north of Lebanon.
How did
they
he move
moved them? They moved them to Zahle.
how did he move them?
He moved. He changed.
You mean
the,
they
he
changed the
He
registry?
changed the registry.
The registry.
Of them.
Is-
But he didn't force them if they didn't. If
Why
they
did-
were
why-
not
what-
willing.
no, when
If
when,
they wa- if
when
they-
suddenly
it's their
20,000
chance.
when suddenly 20,000 are moved in this well-studied movement
yes.
like that, you know, and you think this is democracy?
I tell you what's democracy.
It's
You tell me
influence.
if
All right.
there is a Christian
Yes.
seat in the south
And
of
still
Lebanon.
we didn't deny the right,
80
and they had a
80%,
majority
80%,
in Dahli's region.
80% of the Christian votes are voting for X in the south. Yeah, again.
we will discuss the electoral law in another episode.
This is the different story.
Definitely.
This
We
is a different
will
story.
get-
yeah.
I'm
we will
just,
get
I'm
back
just
to
pointing out this story based on you keep on pulling that Michel Aoun have the majority of
This
the
is the
MPs.
fact. I'm not-
But
I
this
didn't-
majority
I didn't
don't
create
reflect
it.
reality.
under the current electoral law.
Until now, it is. I'm not creating it. It's a fact.
Could we also
Yes.
say that that's because General Aoun decided to go for parliamentary elections in areas where he could get Shia votes, Jbail and Kisrwain?
No,
mainly?
in some area he lost.
he-
In some area he lost. Where there are, many people from this side or this side. It is the people vote.
He lost in Ashrafiyya where the majority is Christians. Where there is he lost in Zahle where the majority of the voters were Christians.
Yes,
he lost where the
where
majority of the
20,000
votes
Sunni,
were.
where
Are you saying
20,000
he's not
Sunni
eligible to be
voted for
president?
him.
Of course
for,
not.
For others.
Michel Aoun don't
You
have
see?
the Michel Aoun don't have the characteristics of a Lebanese president. He is hated by half of the Christians. Not even this. They don't even disagree with him. They even hate him.
Why?
There is
But
a
that
set
applies
of
to
people
Samir
that-
Ja'ja.
Okay, right.
definitely.
Now we're not talking about
Michel
hating
Aoun is a
somebody
part.
and love somebody.
Michel
We're
Aoun
talking
is
about-
part of a problem.
Yeah.
Therefore, he cannot represent
Right.
all the Lebanese.
We
Therefore,
have-
he
that's
cannot
why-
be
that's
elected
why I
as
said-
president.
That's why I said, as a Lebanese, we should not put weight on political values rather than, or on the cost of ethical values. We have to rebuild this within our political system, that ethical value should come first. And that's why we should have a person on the presidency who have the consensus of all the Lebanese.
As exciting as this debate is getting, I guess we have to close at some point. I would like to extend my thanks to our guests here at Levant Studios with us, Dr. Mohammad Haidar, who spoke about the characteristics of a good Lebanese president. Also over the phone from Beirut, Mr. Ziad Abs of the Free Patriotic Movement, who told us about the importance of including all blocs in political life. and touched a little bit on Hezbollah engagement. Also from Beirut, we were joined by Carol Malouf, who expressed her remarkable opinions. Many thanks for that. And last but not least, thanks to Mr. Christian Shawoul, media representative of the Kataeb, or the Lebanese Phalanges Party here in the UK. And I will be with you again soon for another episode, and bye for now.
Well, at this moment, you know, if we look back at the primary seat for the prime minister,
Yes.
you know, there was a long, you know, discussion between the Lebanese, and there was the total disagreement from different political parties, and everybody was trying, you know, to raise their ceiling, you know, about what this has to be, or that. Basically, the agreements, you know, between the Lebanese on certain issues, which really is important to each political party. But at the end of the day, it is a learned lesson, you know, for the Lebanese. If you don't come to an agreement among each other, we will reach nothing. And at the end of the day, you know, when at the end of this period of the prime minister, they had to elect the right person. Although this period is a short period of time, and but I think we need like a stronger prime minister, and that's why we need a very strong and, you know, really good character of a president who have the consensus of the Lebanese, a president who we are proud of. Well, I'm not saying that we're not proud of Michel Suleiman, but there were certain issues which really related to the future of this country. There was no agreement on it, and this is, you know, what made some of the parties criticize the president, and not the presidency position, by the way. The president himself, as a person, not the chair itself.
Yes. Christian Shawoul, what could we say about President Suleiman's legacy as a president?
In my opinion, President Suleiman's legacy was a good legacy compared to Lahoud and Hrawi.
Hello, welcome back to Levant TV Straightforward. This week we will be discussing the upcoming presidential elections in Lebanon. Will the country be in political vacuum like the one it witnessed before President Suleiman was elected in 2008? Lebanon is one of 5 countries expecting elections this spring, including Syria, Iraq, Egypt, Yemen and Algeria. Let me first welcome our guests here at the studio. Dr. Mohammad Haidar, UK-based political analyst, and Mr. Christian Shawoul, London media representative of the Kataeb, the Lebanese Phalanges Party. Thank you very much for being on the show. Before we delve into our expectedly heated discussion today, let's have a look at this brief report on presidential elections within the current political structure.
When the mandate of President Michel Suleiman expires in May, and barring exceptional circumstances, Lebanon will have a new president. As per the unwritten National Pact of 1943, the president must be a Maronite Christian. The period to elect a new president in Lebanon began on March 25th, and so far in the running for this year's election are the leaders of the 2 largest Christian parties, the Free Patriotic Movement's Michael Aoun and the Lebanese Forces head Samir Jaja, the only candidate to have officially declared. Most political parties and foreign powers have highlighted the necessity of electing a new president on time in order to avoid a presidential vacuum such as the one between November 2007 and May 2008, when finally the current President Suleiman was selected. With Lebanon being a representative democracy, the presidential elections take place at the parliament, where only the 128 MPs decide Suleiman's successor. A candidate needs a 2/3 majority to be elected. If this wasn't successful, a president could be elected with a simple majority of 65 votes. And the Speaker, Nabi Berri, should convene the legislature for a presidential poll by May 15th. Hezbollah, who joined the parliament in 2005, is closely allied with the Free Patriotic Movement, headed by Michael Aoun, whose ambitions for Baghdad Palace are very clear. However, throughout the Cedar Revolution and for the first time in Lebanon's recent history, the Sunnis voiced a stance against Syria and allied with the Christian right, especially the Lebanese Force leader Samir Jaja. The Lebanese patriarch has always had a say as to who the president will be, but how will that compare to foreign factors like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Syria and the West? While many have ambitions for presidency, it's not always been a very rewarding experience. Former Lebanese presidents have been assassinated and others were subject to harsh criticism from the people as well as the media.
Dr. Mohammad Haidar, the report ends by concluding that it's not all glamorous being president in the Lebanon, and criticism does get harsh, especially towards the end of a presidential term. Let's assess with you a little bit President Slimaine's term.
Well, according to a lot of statistics, you know, there are people who are in favor of, for example,
General. For me, President Slimane was a president for all the Lebanese. When he defends the area that's getting bombed by Syria lately, which are Sunnis area and Muslim areas, he's defending his people basically, which proves that he's a president for all sectors of the Lebanese people and not only the Christians.
Yes.
President Slimaine's main aim lately was to defend the sovereignty of Lebanon. From the invasion of the Syrian, if it was military or the refugees or all what's happening on our borders, which is destroying the stability of our country, the stability of our people. Therefore, I rate President Slimane for doing this. I rate the Christian president for defending Sunnis living by the borders and Shias, which are being killed and bombarded from the Syrian borders.
So obviously that's an assessment also to Mr. Slimane as a Maronite president.
Exactly.
Dr. Haidar, before we get into the strategic choices that President Slimane took, let us touch a little bit on reform in Lebanon when it comes to human rights and women's rights, particularly. What has been achieved under Slimane, and is there anything left for the next president?
Tell you, in Lebanon, when you talk about like a new breakthrough for a president, it's there are, you have to remember that there are some priorities for the Lebanese society. General Michel Aoun, at the last period of the President Suleiman, wasn't really in favor of all of the Lebanese. When he was elected, there was like he had a neutral position and from an equal distance from all political parties. But at the end of this period, there was a little turn, which really wasn't in agreement with all of the Lebanese. And this is what the Lebanese expect from the presidency. Although it is a Christian position, well, it's not constitutional, but it's like a protocol, an agreement.
Yes, a gentleman agreement.
Yes, that's right. But of course, this is something, the Lebanese agree on it. So the president should be a Maronite. And that's why, we shouldn't always consider that this position is, for example, is a political position or a confessional one, belongs to the Maronite or belongs to the Christian. This position is for the whole Lebanese. Yes. So that's why, consensus among, all the Lebanese is something really important for the next period of time. A president who should have consensus among the Lebanese in order to make or pave the roads for a better future for the Lebanese in general.
So can I reiterate, you just mentioned because all Lebanese confessions sort of gentlemen agreed that the Lebanese president will be a Maronite. You emphasize on the importance of the inclusivity in terms of public opinion when it comes to the upcoming president, and that he should be at an equal distance from all the Lebanese.